Jones gives it to Corey Kiner, charges straight up the middle and runs into the end zone, standing up, giving him 100 yards and giving the Bearcats a 16-7 lead. Newman has the ball, takes a pass toward the corner, does it again, passes to Bandego. Aziz outside the arc. Now Lukosius curls off a screen, shoots a three, makes it. He made it. 3 seconds to go. The Bearcats up by 1. San Francisco launches from center court. No good. Simas Lukosius.
His 5th plate appearance tonight. He swings and hits it high and deep to left field. Goodbye, home run. Carrington Cross. A 3-run shot. And it's now 7-3 Cincinnati.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GoBeercats podcast, part of the Catskeller Social Club and member of the College Huddle community. I'm Brandon, he's Darin, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see here from the jump, we have Brett Berry joining us here from Wildcat Radio 2.0. We're going to get into what that means here deep into the show. I was very excited to learn about the University of Arizona and what they're bringing to the Big 12. Definitely excited for some basketball. Football wasn't too bad last year either. Brett, welcome into the show. How are we doing tonight?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Of course. Darin, I know you have the den green screen behind you. I'm assuming your dwelling is just nothing but boxes preparing for the move.
No. Fortunately, the company's footing the bill, so they have like a long distance moving service that not only moves the boxes, but they pack the boxes as well. Oh. So yeah, we essentially don't touch anything. We have to take liquids, we have to take clothes, and then that's pretty much it. Otherwise, they handle everything else.
That's pretty nice. Luckily, it's not too far of a move. I mean, Nashville's, 6 hours away, maybe.
No, that's way too much. It's 4. It's just over 4.
Okay, even better. It's not like you're moving to Arizona or something.
Yeah,
clear across the country, so not too bad there. 4 hours, that's not bad at all. Brett, I know we kind of given you the rundown of what this show is. Last summer we started the Big 12 road trip as Cincinnati moved to the Big 12. We kind of wanted to get to know our brethren. There were some schools that we hadn't had a lot of interaction with. And now that we have 4 new schools coming into the Big 12, we thought we'd continue this road trip, especially since most of you are much further out west. And I know we've played semi-recently in basketball, but I can't say that I know a ton about Arizona and the Wildcats. So you are here to be the representative and teach all of Cincinnati what Arizona is all about.
Well, no pressure then, huh?
No pressure at all. Not at all. We like to start things off here with a beer, Brett. So you're the guest. I'll ask you first. Are you sipping on anything here as it is time for a beer here on our show?
I am about to crack mine. This is not from Tucson, but it is from Phoenix area. Probably the best brewery in the state of Arizona called Wren House. This is a variant of their standard hazy IPA Spellbinder, the Superdelic variant. So I'm actually a member here and have been for a number of years. And I even have the proper glassware with the fancy. Let me put this up here so we can really see the fun.
It's like you're part of the show. Like you knew what you were doing, ready to go, prepare. I like it.
So it's a nice little hazy IPA.
Absolutely nice. Darin, how about yourself? You're
decided to at least kind of sip on this 50 West, finishing off my peach ale I have, since it's just going to be a pain in the butt to transport perishables, and you don't want beer to
well drink them.
Yeah, warm back up. So yeah, slowly but surely.
Nice. Very nice. Was that last weekend? I was struggling after the golf outing, but I decided to get a little ambitious here and ease my way back, into the IPA world. Midwest IPA from Great Lakes, not a Cincinnati beer, but Great Lakes, very well-known brewery here in Ohio from Cleveland. I hope this beer does me justice, as I've taken about a week off from drinking.
And Darin, as somebody that recently moved a long distance, I had a good time drinking down my beer fridge before that move, because I didn't want to move a lot of 22-ounce bombers of high-end stouts in the way. Yeah. So me and my friends had a few before I moved.
Luckily, I got like 2 more left in the fridge after this, because we moved next week. So I have to be very careful about going overboard on my next grocery trip for the week. So.
That is a tasty beer. I like it. That's gonna hopefully get me through the episode there. That is a excellent glass. This is like a imperial size, 19.2 fluid ounces. So that should get me through the episode, I think. Brad, I saw you have a backup there just in case. My beer fridge is just one little scoot over here off screen. So if we have to, I can reload.
Yeah, if we reload, I'm really reloading, because I have the Wren House Barrel Aged Predation S'more Stout. If we get to that.
Very nice, very nice. Well, I mean, we're off to a great start here, drinking delicious beers, getting ready to talk sports. What I always like to ask first, Brett, is because I'm kind of if anyone will tell me, I'm kind of obsessed with how things like these projects of passion come to be. So I guess we'll get things kicked off here, asking like how did Wildcat Radio 2.0 come to be about? How did you become involved, and where's the name's pretty straightforward, but where'd it come from?
So the name and the podcast are older than I am being associated with it, and it used to be a Wildcat Radio that I think they ran into some trademark issues with a Tucson program, hence the 2.0 moniker that came along. And it's been around for I think like five or 6 years now. They've kind of had a rotation of original hosts and had a couple of people come through. My co-host, Adam Green, used to be in Sports Talk Radio in the Phoenix area, still does some writing for the AZ Desert Swarm website, the SB Nation site. That's a really great, they do a really great job over there. And he's one of my better friends, and asked me to fill in for one of his co-hosts who had just had his second kid, I think, at the time. And so it was maybe a temporary thing, and that was about 1.5 years ago. So I think it's now that I am a permanent co-host. And I'm also the person that runs our social media handle when I'm not overworking in my day job. So it's been a fun time.
I know that feeling all too well of becoming a co-host permanently. So
a one-time guest turns into a two-time guest, and then what? Here we are, like 25 episodes later, hanging out.
Yeah, we had I think Wildcat Radio, we were randomly recording. We'd like to read our reviews on the air a couple months ago, and by happenstance, should have been paying better attention. We actually just had our 500th episode a couple months back. We probably should have made a bigger deal of it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. That's a good milestone for sure. Brett, tell me, there's out of the 4 new schools coming over here for this season. I feel as though one of them was pretty outspoken as to not wanting to make the move over to the Big 12. And that's no secret that would be Utah. But kind of give us your reaction, or what you think the Arizona fan base's reaction is to moving over to the Big 12.
Yeah, so obviously we in Arizona paid a lot of attention to the whole rumblings, especially after Colorado made the decision early and kind of forced the hand. Arizona State, our in-state rival, also wasn't particularly keen on moving, if you believe the rumors. Michael Crow, their president, was really tight with Larry Scott, the old Pac-12 commissioner that doesn't have a lot of fans from the last 15 years before George took over. I think the Arizona fan base is one that has been, I think there's a lot of sadness to see the old Pac-12, Pac-10 go away. But I think the Arizona fan base was more apt to join the Big 12, especially as a traditionally basketball school going into the SEC of college basketball in the Big 12. It's going to be a gauntlet, every game. So I think Arizona fans are relatively supportive overall of joining the Big 12. Also with the football program in a much better spot than it has been in a little while, I think Arizona fans see the Big 12 as a kind of a right-sized competition level for them to maintain success rather than having to try to keep up with the Oregons and USCs of the world. So overall, I think most Arizona fans are relatively happy. Though as a podcast host and somebody that's active on the Twitter machine, the X-Twitter machine, I'm already loath to think ahead to when Arizona, goes 3 games over 500 in conference play, and Arizona fans freak out, but they'll be ranked in the top 15 in basketball, because I have a feeling that's what's coming. I don't think anybody's getting out of that Big 12 in a regular season with fewer than 10 losses very easily. But I think most fans also appreciate that, and I certainly appreciate that hopefully means that Arizona will be ready when it comes March, because Arizona fans are angsty for another Final Four, as it's been a minute.
Can certainly understand that for sure. The Final Four drought. A little ahead of ourselves, but I would say when your home games, those are important in the Big 12. Yeah. If you can do that, you'll be in a nice spot. But just make sure you win those home games. They are super important, and wins on the road come at a premium.
And I think that's true in all sports and all conferences. But you guys get to experience McHale Center as fans for the first time. Probably, I don't think you guys have ever played there. Certainly not against Arizona that I can recall. But it's consistently the most well-attended basketball arena in college sports on the West Coast, and it's a pretty fun environment. Tough place to play.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking forward to it. Obviously, likewise coming to Fifth Third. Obviously, it's not the most packed. It's not because it's not the biggest, but we're proud of that little house in Clifton. Now, you jumping back to football a little bit. You mentioned that you guys have had recent success. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Jed Fish has got plucked by a former conference mate on their way out. What's the outlook looking like for that?
Yeah, so it's been another eventful offseason for Arizona football. For the last several years, Arizona fans always thought that nothing beats a Jed Fish offseason, because every season he was winning the offseason. Granted, it started from, no pun intended, but maybe a pun intended, of a dead cat bounce. They had the 20 straight losses, and he got the 1 win in his first season. But they've started to recruit well pretty early on. That 2022 class is just an insane hit rate. Usually if you get a 50% hit rate on your football recruiting class, that's a win, even for big time programs. That class probably has an 80% hit rate. Now a bunch of them followed Jed Fish to Seattle. It was a kind of a crazy time, I think, in Tucson and for Arizona fans when the rumors started coming up. Actually, Kalen DeBoer going to Alabama was hired away by ex-Arizona athletic director Greg Byrne at Alabama, so he kind of started the whole train going. And then when the news broke, I think Arizona fans are used to and accustomed to assuming that they can't have nice things, especially when it comes to football. So they assumed the worst, especially in the age of NIL. Jed Fish going to Seattle, where there's just more money, more resources. They're moving to the Big Ten. But the administration moved fairly quickly and hired Brent Brennan, who is a Dick Tomey disciple, who is one of the most winningest coaches of the 90s in college football in general. When he was at Arizona, people forget that Arizona had one of the best winning percentages in the 90s during the Desert Swarm era. I got my Desert Swarm shirt on right now. And so they were able to move quickly, and Brent Brennan, by all reports, is a solid coach, even better human being, which I think was an interesting thing, because Jed Fish would always talk about building a culture, and he thought that culture would travel with him, especially in the age of NIL. But I think they ended up pulling a number of guys that never saw the field for Arizona, the new incoming recruiting class, and a number of good players, including Jonah Coleman, starting running back, Ephesians Prysock, starting corner. But Arizona held on to Noah Fafita, Tataroa McMillan, the entirety of the offensive line that wasn't drafted in the first round. They lost Jordan Morgan to the NFL draft to the Green Bay Packers, which is the first time they've had a first-round draft pick in a long time, and I think the highest drafted offensive lineman from Arizona in even longer. A lot of the community really rallied around after, there was a lot of anger at Jedd Fisch's departure and the way he left, especially when, a couple of days earlier, there's a lot of evidence that perhaps he was slow walking things, knowing that the Washington deal might be out there when Arizona had already had a partially signed contract extension for him on the table that wasn't quite finalized. So I think there's a lot of animosity both in the community and in the athletic department.
He pulled a Brian Kelly.
I'm sorry?
He pulled a Brian Kelly.
Yeah. But, Tucson is I always describe it as a really big, small college town. It's over 1 million people in the metro area, but it definitely has that small town, college town feel where people that don't even go to the school and don't go to the school pay attention and care. And so it really kind of served as a rallying cry, I think, for the Arizona fan base, including some of the big donors. Humberto Lopez, you guys might have caught the story where his text messages to Jedd Fisch leaked. And he basically said, I'm going to make sure you can't just buy these players. So that's how they helped keep 4/5 of their offensive line that was really solid last year. They kept T-Mac, they kept Noah Fafita. Jedd Fisch did one thing that was very right of building the culture, really going back to the Dick Tummy roots, focusing on the Polynesian community. And that community tends to not like to be betrayed. So they kind of stuck together pretty well through the off season, and then that culminated with the halftime, or not at halftime, one of the timeouts against UCLA in basketball, when the entire team, including Noah and T-Mac, came onto the court and said they're coming back. And that was one of the coolest moments, I think, in Tucson sports history. And then Brent Brennan was hired. He actually finished second in the job to Jedd Fisch the first go around, coming over from San Jose State. Doesn't have the flashiest win-loss record, but San Jose State is one of the least financially supported institutions playing college sports and college football, to the point where the coaches would have to set up and break down the chairs when they're having lunch and clear the cafeteria kind of thing. So he's come in. The first test was trying to retain as much of the roster as possible that had a lot of talent on it, that won 10 games, and he passed that. Then with the portal, they've actually added 20-something guys in the portal, maybe not superstar types, but really filled in where some of the departures with Jedd Fisch and the recruiting class going to Washington, and a couple other guys like Bill Norton went to Texas, and a couple other good players for Arizona moved on. But he passed that test in terms of bringing in guys that seem pretty solid, and they've kind of gotten through that, and now they got through spring practice. Tyrone McMillan had some kind of a foot injury and maybe a procedure, which is a little bit concerning. They're 5-star wide receiver, but overall, I think most Arizona fans are feeling pretty good heading into the summer and ready for fall camp.
I would assume the 10-3 finish last year would have people on high, right? That's the first 10-win season, and since 2014. Rich Rod was there, I believe.
Rich Rod.
When I was doing a little bit of research here, I completely forgot about that name until I saw that again. Not a ton of 10-win seasons really since the late 90s. Just tell us about the atmosphere and the excitement and how fun last season was after the Alamo Bowl, right? Beat Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, so that's always a fun to win bowl games, especially against a brand name like Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think Arizona fans last season going into it were optimistic that they would make a bowl and be a better than expected team. I don't know if anyone quite expected 9 regular season wins and beating a perennial power like Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. I think they even had some games where they probably should have won that they lost. That USC game in triple overtime, they really had multiple chances to win that and probably should have won it. Granted, they barely snuck by on the Stanford game where Noah Fafita came in for an injured Jaden DeLora and never gave the job back and looked like a Heisman contender if he was playing that way over an entire season. And then I actually happened to be in Pullman when they went to Washington State that was ranked, I think, in the top 15 at the time, and then just boat raced them by 40-something points. And that was when it kind of was eye-opening, when this team was, I think, maybe, 4-3 at the time or something like that. And it was like, this team might be deserving of being ranked. My brother-in-law gave me a lot of crap for it, and then I gave him a lot of crap as Arizona proceeded to win the rest of the way out, including beating some pretty solid teams in that Alamo Bowl game. It was a really interesting thing to watch as an Arizona fan, because Jordan Morgan, the first-round pick, sat out that game, and going against Oklahoma D-line was a different thing than what they faced in the Pac-12, especially with young, unproven guys at the tackle spots. Made it a little bit crazy and scary, but the defense produced a bunch of turnovers. I don't know if you guys saw any of those things. There was a 90-yard.
Gabriel with the turnovers? Never.
It was one of the more entertaining games to watch as an Arizona fan. But it was a really fun thing to watch, especially as somebody that was a season ticket holder. And I lived in Phoenix, and I was driving down for games almost every game, even when they were in the midst of the 20-game losing streak. So it was very satisfying to get to watch a lot of wins in a row and see the community kind of come out and the fan base really embrace the team.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously a 10-3 record is, for someone who's more like a scoreboard watcher, that doesn't seem like you snuck up on anybody. But, I think people tend to see teams like that, especially after like a 20-game losing streak. People kind of just discard teams like that and forget about them. And then, start to improve a little bit, in 2022. And then 2023, you turn around, they're rattling off, like a 6 straight. So that's got to be exciting to, in a way, catch the college football world off guard.
Yeah, I still think people, a lot of casual observers for the game that Arizona ended the 20-game losing streak was the COVID game against Cal.
Yeah.
Where Cal barely was able to field the team. They had a lot of guys out. What doesn't get mentioned in that story is that Arizona barely had enough active guys on the roster because people were quitting the team, getting injured, transferring out early. I believe their first, second, and third string centers were playing at left tackle, left guard, and center, respectively. They were starting their fourth string quarterback. A walk-on took a snap and threw an interception. Their backup wide receiver took snaps at quarterback, and they still found a way to pull that game out. And so I still think that a lot of the football world doesn't quite believe that Arizona is a decent football school, especially, you guys could probably understand when a school gets branded as a basketball school, there's also just a presumption that anytime there's football success that it's a fluke and it's not going to last. And I think that with the departure of Jed Fish, I think the presumption on the casual observer nationally is that Arizona is going to take a huge step back and presume that they lost a lot of talent. And last year's team actually had very few seniors. They only had like 15 seniors taking snaps. And so even with the departures that left, Bill Norton to Texas and the guys to Washington, it's really only about the equivalent of losing a regular graduating class for a team that's really successful. And a school like Arizona, usually it's a heavy senior class, not a team full of sophomores and juniors that are doing most of the work. So I think there's a lot of cause for optimism for Arizona football fans, even if the casual observer nationally just still doesn't believe it. They're probably 18 months behind where Arizona really is and has been. But that, I think, works for me as an Arizona fan because I don't want anybody to bring their A game down. I'm a selfish fan. I'll take a win any way I can take it. I hope nobody comes prepared to play Arizona and they have easy wins through the Big 12.
I'll take it. Staying on the football theme here, I know UC. We are not, or we don't have Arizona on the schedule this year. Either way, you coming to us or we going to you guys. But when that day does come, and the Bearcats fans travel out west, kind of paint a picture of what game day is like around the stadium, in the stadium. Do they have are beer sales allowed in the stadium, and sort of describe the tailgating scene.
Yeah, so like I said, Tucson's kind of a big, small college town. Campus is in the middle of town. Basically, it's about a mile and a half from downtown Tucson, which has kind of had a resurgence. But campus is the heart of Tucson and Pima County in general. The tailgate scene is actually pretty fantastic. In the early part of the season, it's going to be a little warm. There's a reason we don't have a lot of day games in Tucson in the fall and in the late summer, essentially, when it's going to be real toasty, which can bring the energy level a little bit down if it's 105 degrees and you're out there drinking in the sun. But Arizona, the university's campus, actually right down the center has the mall, which is a big grassy area that runs from one end of campus all the way to Old Main, which was the original building for the university. It's probably 3/4 of a mile long stretch of essentially green grass and some other grass on the side towards the stadiums. It's a really fun time. It's a relatively tight campus for a big campus. They do allow beer sales in the stadium, which was something they changed about 4 or 5 years ago. And one of the cooler things is they actually bring in some of the local breweries, not just Bud Light and Coors Light or whatever. So there's some decent options usually. They've rotated a little bit, and they were relatively cheap. I'm kind of shocked they haven't jacked the prices up as much in the last couple of years. But it's a good time. The stadium itself is kind of a tale of two sides. There's the north end zone that was fully rebuilt during the Rich Rod era, like total tear down and rebuild. That's where the football facility is. And then the east side of the stadium, which is where the student section is, all of the areas under there got renovated really nice. They have a DJ usually that's there, and they opened up some space. The spring game, they'll be throwing water balloons because it's hot out. The whole sideline to sideline is the student section called the Zona Zoo. It's a good time. Then you get to the side where most of the season ticket holders are, and the visitor section is, and it's in dire need of some renovation. It's got the old, 90-year-old, 100-year-old construction. The bathrooms are a little rough. The corridors are a little tight, but that's just a little bit of the charm of old football stadiums, right? So it's a fun time. You get good views of you'll have views of the mountains to the north, and you're basically right in the heart of Tucson when you're at the football stadium, and the basketball arena is right next door too. If you ever come for that, McHale Center's. It's not a new stadium by any means, but they've kept it up very well. As a premier basketball program, a lot of money goes into making that product as good as it can be. But overall, it's a pretty darn good time.
Darin, what do you think? Like as Brett's describing this, I think a lot of it sounds like Nippert. A lot of it sounds like UC's campus. A lot of the like urban campus. Like at UC, Brett, you can stretch out your arms and touch Fifth Third Arena and Nippert Stadium, and if you do a 180, you can touch the baseball stadium too. And it just sounds very similar to what we have going on here in Cincinnati as well.
Yeah, and it's like I said, the downtown area is not too far. Like I've actually walked from the hotels over there. There's good bars, good breweries that are all like a mile from campus. There's University Ave at the east end of campus, or the west end of campus. Apologies. That's a great place to go pregame. There's going to be a lot of students, a lot of the Greek life kids out there having a nice time. And then there's some, obviously a craft beer guy. There's some good breweries and some good tap rooms that I tend to go to pregame, and then maybe haul some of that onto the mall and sip that one hopefully staying out of the sun when it's hot in September and October.
Yeah, as a fellow metropolitan university, it's pretty similar setup. Our downtown is essentially like depending on what side of campus you're on, it's like a 2-minute drive just down the hill into the downtown area. You build up instead of out because your university is surrounded by city essentially. So yeah, it's definitely similar. And we basically have a designated tailgate zone that's kind of like the only green space around campus. So totally get that. So if you're making a trip out, hopefully they feel a little familiar. Minus the mountains, we got hills, not mountains. So, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, you guys can see. I don't know if everybody just watches this. These photos are actually all ones my friend took, and they're all within like 20 miles of each other around Tucson. If you can believe that.
Yeah.
Like very nice. Heck yeah. You know, Brett, to stay on the craft beer and the stadium thing, I don't know if you know this or if anyone of your listeners may be crossing over here to our show to catch what you're introducing us to Arizona. We have right here behind me, we have a can of Cincy Light. That is our NIL beer. The university partnered with a local brewery called Rheingeist to produce a Cincy Light, where certain sales from the cases or the kegs go to the NIL fund. Darin has a Cincy Light T-shirt on there. I almost had the same thing on, but my wife has stolen that from my side of the closet. Does Arizona have anything like that going or in the works?
Oh man, now I want to have a beer called Name Image Lager. They have. Maybe I should trademark that right now. It's on recording. Put this out into the world. So I'm not aware of any specific NIL supporting beer. They do. One of the Pueblo Vita, one of the great local breweries down there, does have a Wildcat beer. That's a good light beer that I believe supports the athletic department, but I'd have to confirm that. It's actually a pretty nice little light one. Pueblo Vita is a great one, a great Tucson brewery in downtown. And I know some of the players have done some promotion things with some there's limits to what they can do, especially when they're underage. But I know they've been associated with a few of those things going on. But I think I'm gonna have to pitch somebody on Name Image Lager and get some recruits to come in.
Love it.
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Brandon. Yeah, I think having it as a light beer is really kind of especially if you want people to drink it and you want it to go down easy. For us, it was the wording I heard is they wanted like an upgraded, Bud Light Coors, something like that. It's been surprisingly, I don't want to say surprisingly, Bearcat fans will, any recognition will take it, but they have definitely come out and forced for it to the point where they had to rethink their production of it and start scaling up. So it's really good. But, circling back to kind of the general fan base here, joining the Big 12, obviously Pac-12 is a Power 5 conference as well. How is the online presence for the fan base?
Oh, you're going to get to know Arizona fans online, I'm sure. Just as they also travel really well, especially in basketball. It's become something of a thing to hear U of A chants in opposing gyms, which is kind of a fun thing to hear. And it's fun when our rivals will say that these fans are so annoying. They just go around chanting U of A. And it's like, oh yeah, they're being so obnoxious, cheering for the team that they are fans of. That's the most obnoxious thing that they're going to do. That I'm gonna be okay with that. We actually, on our podcast, we just had a couple of weeks ago a young man named Alex Rapp, who has kind of become viral online on Twitter, doing custom Arizona sports themed videos. Yep. You might have seen some of them in the football game ones. He would do that after every win, and they'd have kind of funny sound effects with music on in the background. They've done some with the Avengers. I think he's actually they've gone so viral that they've the university has commissioned him to do a couple of videos for them.
Nice.
So their Arizona fan base is definitely one that has opinions, sometimes to the point of ridicule, especially when they, we just had a pretty strong baseball season, won the Pac-12 conference tourney. Chip Hale won Pac-12 Coach of the Year, and they lost in the regional they hosted, and Arizona fans were ready to fire him because they should have made it to Omaha, even though they were picked to finish ninth to start the year. Arizona fans are angsty for success, and they need a national title or they need a Final Four here real soon. Otherwise, they're just gonna they keep engaging and the angst level builds up. But overall, I think it's a pretty fun, engaging fan base. Yeah, if you haven't seen Alex's videos, go watch them. They're pretty great, and they're pretty good hype videos.
Well, it's funny because I've seen those, and then your punter, if you caught that, I think Cash Peterman does like helmet custom stuff that he does, if I remember, because he transferred from BYU, maybe.
Oh, the new guy that just transferred in.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure he does like he's come across my algorithm a few times, and he does like custom like helmets or things like that in his spare time. When I saw, and I noticed he rocks Arizona. I was like, oh, because I thought he was at BYU before that. So, yeah.
I mean, he was at BYU before. I'm curious to see if he gets on the field this year, because Tyler Loop came back and he was a all conference type kicker last year. But Arizona needs a punter really bad because they graduated their other one. But yeah, it's a fun engaging fan base. Noah Fafita and T-Mac have been featured prominently. There's actually Noah Fafita's father, I think, was partnering on a series of videos that's been coming out documenting the off season, and I think they're planning on doing that into the regular season. That's been pretty good. I think there's been 3 or 4 episodes on that. I'm blanking on the name of the media group, but I'm sure you guys can find it and watch it. It's pretty interesting to kind of see the behind the scenes of what went into some of those decisions for them to stay. But it's a really engaged fan base, a really creative fan base at times. Because, like I said, even the people that live in Tucson that don't go to the university or didn't go to the university still care about the university, which is a really fun thing.
Yeah, Darin and I have kind of talked about that recently about UC, as we've starting to gather more and more of those fans. We probably weren't a university that had a ton of what we like to call T-shirt fans, right? They, are alumni, sure, people who are involved with the university somehow or had, knew someone that went there, sure, but like we have the outside of the outer belt, the 275 outer belt. I like to call it beyond the wall. We didn't have a whole lot of people wearing UC T-shirts, but we seem to have more and more of those, especially since the college football playoff run seems to be a much more cooler, hipper thing to do to care about UC now, and we'll take those. We'll take those for sure. I think we've made fun of our fair share of schools for having those T-shirt fans, but it's nice to have them. We'll take them for sure.
Hey, take what sport you can get. I mean, how many Gen Zers are walking around wearing their Nirvana shirt? You don't see Dave Grohl complaining.
That's true. That's true. I like that there's an online presence. We've definitely found that out. Moving from the American to the Big 12, there are certain fan bases that are definitely online more than others in the Big 12. Iowa State is big. If you've not interacted with a Central Florida fan, consider yourself lucky, because that day will come and you will regret it.
Best I could tell, I talked to the guys at the United ones, and it sounds like UCF seems a lot like our in-state rivals, Arizona State, as a fan base, for better or mostly worse.
It's something. I hope you never lose to them, because you'll know when you do, unfortunately. But with like that kind of idea in mind, do you think as Arizona fans, do you have an early favorite as to who you're looking forward to playing in the Big 12, or like who you think would be your new Big 12 rival outside of Arizona State, of course?
So I think I almost have to bifurcate that question between the two main sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in football, I think it's a little more up for grabs. I think Arizona fans are kind of looking at the Big 12 and being like, who's the competition to win the conference? And they want to go punch them in the nose and make them their rival. Whether that's, Iowa State or K-State. Arizona plays K-State as a non-conference opponent this year with the way everything shook out, which is going to be an interesting thing. It'll be a good test, I think, for Brent Brennan and the team. But then I think in basketball, I think it's I mean, I think the obvious answer is that it's going to be Kansas. I want it to be Kansas just because it's two perennial, powerhouse programs. They're going to need to face each other on the regular. Kansas played the in-state rivals Arizona State a lot in the last 6 or 7 years, and inexplicably always seem to stub their toe against ASU, which is kind of bizarre because ASU's not exactly been a powerhouse. They're fine, but I think that's probably who Arizona fans are most interested in engaging with in the basketball realm. And we'll see. It's going to be a bloodbath of a conference and a slog just to get through that. But it's going to hopefully make, like I said, the teams a lot more ready come March, because Arizona fans do not care about regular season success anymore. They do not care about winning conference tourneys. They want to get to the Final Four, come hell or high water. They've had a lot of Elite Eight runs, Sweet 16 runs, ran into some rough matchups and had some bad games. Had some shots rim out that they wouldn't be so angsty if Jamel Horn's 3 goes in against UConn that went on and won the national title that year. Brandon Ashley broke his foot in the year with T.J. McConnell, Aaron Gordon, Richard Jefferson, or Ronnie Hollis Jefferson, sorry. If Brandon Ashley doesn't break his foot that year, they might have run the table. But here we are. Arizona hasn't been to the Final Four since, I think, 2001, which is a long, long time for a program that's as successful as Arizona has been. And it's, like I said, there's a lot of built-up angst out there, and it's going to be interesting to see how they come into the conference and playing teams like Cincinnati, Kansas, K-State. They're going to be a really good test for them every game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most exciting thing is new experiences too. Really, just schools you never, you're Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia. These are schools that are far, east instead. So, the regionality of sports is kind of broken down a little bit in that regard. What is your favorite tradition on game day in Arizona?
Ooh, for football or for
in general? If sports tradition. It could be a sports tradition in general. It could be a game day tradition, just culture wise.
So I think the probably the best tradition, unsurprisingly, are probably the ones in the basketball program that kind of came naturally. When you watch an Arizona game in Tucson, the entire stadium will not sit down until the opposing team scores. They're going to stand the whole time. And when you are shooting 2 free throws, if your guy misses the first of 2, the entire crowd is going to yell, "Nice shot, buddy," at that guy sarcastically. Which is just, I like those things because it's just, it's old-fashioned, not like manufactured traditions where, the Arizona football program has they keep trying to make fetch happen. When it comes to tradition. And the best ones are ones that have been around for forever and kind of come naturally, right? For Arizona basketball, where one side of that arena is a lot of the blue hairs that have been season ticket holders for 40 years. Some of them, it's actually kind of cool to see the older, more well-heeled fan base still want to just sit there and stand and until the other team scores. And Arizona's basketball fans are probably the most informed fan base of any pro or college sport in Arizona. It's always something that makes me proud, where they can sense when the team needs, they're starting to build something and they just naturally, again, get a little rowdier or get on their feet. It's a very old-timey, tradition kind of thing of a fan base that really gets behind the program rather than just having the music blare and, yell, pumped in crowd noise, shouting defense kind of thing. So those are probably my two favorite ones. There's the standing and the nice shot buddy, just because the nice shot buddy is also fun.
We have a fun phrase, at least for some reason, American soccer culture. It's just organic, I think, is the term you're really looking for there. This happens naturally, and everyone just kind of feels it. So I mean, I really do enjoy things like that. Keeping it on basketball, tell us a little bit more about Kale Center. It's approximately really pushing 15,000. fantastic venue from what I can see. But expand upon that for us.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest venues that's on campus. It's not Arizona playing at, an NBA arena, so it's a little bit more intimate despite being almost, in the mid-teens, thousands of people, typically sold out. You got the rowdy student section behind the one basket. You usually have the live pep band, but also they've kind of modernized over time a little bit. There's a whole thing where they dimmed the lights on the crowd to try to make sure that the action was the centerpiece, but also I think people liked a little bit lit up where you could see the fan interaction a little bit more. It's a fun environment. The pep band is again, it's kind of one of those organic things that's been around for forever, that even when they mix in the recorded music, they're kind of driving a lot of the energy there. You've probably seen them with the red and white stripes, kind of look like Where's Waldo kind of thing. Nothing like having a full drum set, next to a basketball. But yeah, it is a marquee place to watch college basketball, and it's where people go to try to get to the next level, and it's treated that way there, right? It's a fun environment. It's not easy to find cheap tickets because even despite that many seats, it's a popular game in town. I think I've even heard rumors that they're going to have the Hollywood seats that's between the scorer's table and the team benches this year. I don't know if that's true or not, but that kind of gives a sense of, what the demands are there. My ex-brother-in-law actually has season tickets behind there, so sometimes I get to see my nieces there, which is always fun when I'm watching on TV. But it's a basketball town first and foremost. They know the game. And the players know why they're there. They're there to win, and they're there to make it to the next level.
Yeah, I did see John Rothstein tweeted out the Big 12 approved that this year, the Hollywood seating. So that'll be interesting to see, how those seats are added into places like Fifth Third or McHale Center, and see what they do with that. That'll definitely be nice little twist, but interesting to see how they do that. Brett, one thing that as I was sitting here, it's we try to put together show notes. This is not on our show notes, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this, because we don't have a coach in common, but we have the Tucson and Cincinnati as a coach in common in Sean Miller. Now he is the head coach at our crosstown rival, our university that I absolutely despise in every way, shape, and form, and hope that they lose every single game they ever play, especially the crosstown shootout. I guess let me ask, just what are your thoughts on his departure from Arizona, and I guess how's what's the fan base's vibe towards Sean Miller now that he's at Xavier?
So that whole, you guys probably didn't pay as much attention to the whole ESPN story debacle as much as
we paid attention. He was a former Xavier coach. We were pretty dialed in.
Yeah. The crazy thing about all of that was that all of the ESPN story, which is what the fans know, is all not accurate. Now, does that mean that there weren't other? It's college sports. I'm quite sure everyone. I have a good friend and mentor whose daughter was going to play college softball, and he's a well-off guy in real estate. And he was even they're trying to cheat to recruit her to Colgate for softball, kind of thing. So it was a weird, long, painful divorce with Sean Miller, where they just kind of let the clock run out, and it was a strange thing. And he had the press conference where he basically told everyone he didn't do anything and they can go shove it, basically, in not so many words. And I think the fan base kind of loved that, especially when the Mark Laubach story was proven to be not accurate. Now, that's not to say other things didn't happen again, but those stories were kind of not quite accurate. I think most Arizona fans I still think positively about Sean Miller and the kind of coach and leader he was. And actually, I think I think he was finally loosening up a little bit in terms of not being much of a control freak and being more flexible in his approach and bringing in more of the Euro guys that actually Tommy Lloyd got to inherit, like Azuolas Tubelis, Kirk Carissa. Those guys were recruited by Sean Miller. Those are not traditional Sean Miller type, blue collar defense first guys, which I thought was actually showing his growth as a coach a little bit. Sean Miller was and is still, I think, a prickly SOB. But I also always appreciated every press conference, every word he would say in there had a message for his players or for recruits. And for better or worse, I think Sean Miller would step over his dead mother to make a Final Four. Jordan. So when the decision was finally made to separate, it was kind of just it was an eventual divorce that was bound to happen. And then Arizona was fortunate enough to get Tommy Lloyd, which I think makes it easier for Arizona fans to just kind of be like, go have success. Because Arizona fans are worried about Arizona first and foremost. But, it sounds like you guys have a little more tension when it comes to Sean Miller and Xavier as he's bookended his Arizona career there.
We didn't hate him as much because he was at Arizona, but there's definitely history and violence in history. So,
well, I mean, Sean Miller can be prickly to the point where it's when he's on your side, you kind of love when he's being
exactly.
People. I remember against UCLA when they had called a timeout earlier in the season, like 4 weeks earlier in a game that they were like beating Arizona, or I can't remember who was winning or losing that game. And it was a completely meaningless timeout with like 14 seconds left and like 10-point differential. And it kind of pissed off the Arizona fans. And later, right before or in the Pac-12 tournament, he called a timeout just to say that was for you. And just
Sean Miller and Mick Cronin doing Sean Miller and Mick Cronin things.
Oh man, you guys have probably. I don't know how much you've gotten to interact with Mick Cronin, but I think he's more of a sociopath than Sean Miller is.
We could get behind that. That's fine. Yeah.
There was a whole thing where people thought that Arizona, like this manufactured story with his Mick Cronin's dad, that UCLA fans still think that Arizona fans like assaulted his father. There's no. And for a friend of our podcast, Justin Spears, that writes for the Daily Wildcat, there's a funny video of Mick Cronin going, and points the finger at him, accusing him of some crap, and like it's like, I'm just a journalist, man. I'm just the guy in front of you. Mick Cronin's
his character.
He's a special. He's an angry elf.
Yeah.
He's been that way for a while. Very animated, so fun to watch on the sidelines. But yeah. Let's switching gears here, Brett, just a little bit. We super good stuff so far. Love it. Just a couple questions here for you, really, to sort of round out our dissertation here on Arizona sports. You mentioned the baseball team earlier. They were, they made a decent run here in the tournament. Probably, some pretty good success there. Historically, but sort of like outside of the big three being football, basketball, baseball, is there a sport that Arizona is particularly good at, one of the the lesser known sports?
The obvious answer there is softball. Arizona's been a powerhouse for a long time. Granted, they just kind of had a passing of the torch onto Caitlin Lowe as the new head coach, former Arizona Star, and they've been doing decently well. They need to recruit a pitcher or two to really get back to that upper echelon, but they made the postseason again this year. But historically, they've been one of the powerhouses. Swimming and diving has been a pretty successful program. The women's golf program won the national title a few years ago, but they just had their coach hired away to the University of Texas. Arizona's done pretty well. They've actually had a lot of success on track and field. Arizona's, I think, tried to be one of those kind of West Coast schools that's good at a lot of the sports. That's a little harder in a tight budget environment and during the COVID years. But the obvious answer is women's softball. gosh, I should probably know this, how many like national titles they've won, but if you go back and look at the Women's College World Series finals, it's for a long stretch, it's like UCLA and Arizona in like the finals, alternating who's winning like 2/3 of the time for the last 30 years. Granted, it's kind of changed a little bit in the last 5 or 10 as I think it's gotten a little more competitive nationally. But Arizona, it carries its weight pretty well in most of the sports out there, and maybe it's not surprising when it comes to like things like golf and swimming and diving, being that it's Arizona.
Yeah.
Following up with that, is there any sport that you don't have that you think or would like to see AZ add?
Oh, they've been recently expanding sports more than they probably should. One thing I think would be fun, but it's hard to do and it's hard to compete with our in-state rival. Arizona State actually has like a legit hockey program, and Arizona's team is a club program. Like Arizona State, there are rivals and all that in school and in just the cities kind of don't like each other. They've actually had pretty great success in terms of national prominence, and I think that would be a fun thing for the Ice Cats, I believe is they're called. They play at the convention center, but they're basically a club program. It would be fun to see them make the leap to being an actual Big 12 program, but maybe that's a lot to ask in the desert.
Yeah, no, we had someone on from Stomp the Bus last week, and they mentioned their hockey program. So yeah, I could see that happening, or at least the desire for it. And just sort of one of the last questions here: name one misconception about your university?
That we are Arizona State University. ESPN.
There you go.
It's amazingly annoying how many people mistake our two universities in Arizona, and now with Grand Canyon University taking its rightful place as the top sports program in the Phoenix area over ASU and most things. No, it's funny because it happens almost every national broadcast or ticker thing. And I think maybe the more serious answer would be that Arizona is just a basketball school. I think people overlook a lot of the other success that the programs have had. Baseball has a long storied history. Softball, like I said, the Desert Storm era football program. I think, if I could be wrong, I think Arizona maybe had the best winning percentage in the 90s in the pack. Like they were that good for a sustained stretch under Dick Tomey. Now, and then the dark times came, and that was rough. But Rich Rod had some good years. Mike Stoops took over the program and had some good years. Things that only Arizona fans know. I don't know if do you guys recall years ago when Arizona was playing Oregon in a triple overtime game with Masoli, and the crowd preemptively rushed the field, and then Oregon came back and won. So if Arizona had won that game, they would have actually gone to the Rose Bowl, which they never did, which would have been wonderful. And you know who that team that almost went to the Rose Bowl, I always used to tell people, they had missing a tight end that was really good that probably would have had them make the Rose Bowl that year. And people are like, tight end doesn't make that much of a difference. And then Rob Gronkowski became a thing in the NFL, and people realized, oh wait, he probably would have been useful in that triple overtime game against Oregon in those, in college football overtime rules. But yeah, I think people just think that Arizona's a basketball school only, and there's a lot of success in a lot of sports. I think Arizona tries to emulate the kind of Stanford model of being good in a lot of sports and all around kind of things. But yeah, the simple answer is stop calling us Arizona State, and I'm sure our brethren in Tempe would say the same thing.
Fair enough.
Also, I did open my s'more stout.
Ooh. There you go. Perfect. That's really all that we have here for you, Brett. I guess we'll open it up like at the very last thing here. If there are any burning questions that you have about Cincinnati or UC that we could answer for you? Anything like that before we let you go?
Oh man, how about for when I or Arizona fans come and visit, what should they expect from the campus, from the city, and the game time environment?
So, Brandon, you want to start this one out?
Are we talking either sport here? Really, definitely. The environment is loud. People in Cincinnati like to drink. There will be plenty of places to get beer or any other spirit that you may tickles your fancy. There's for the craft beer heads. There's like 56 breweries in the greater Cincinnati area. So plenty of places. I would put us in the top 5 cities in the United States for craft beer.
That's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement. I've been to some other ones that make that top 5 or top 10 list, and I'll certainly put Cincinnati beer in that conversation for sure. Most part, places are welcoming. The Den tailgate that you see behind Darin, that's our home tailgate group. It's an open tailgate group where any fans, Cincinnati or others, can just show up and not have to lug a bunch of stuff to the tailgate area. Everything's set up for you. So very a welcoming environment that is certainly diehards about their university and want to see it be successful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Yeah. Definitely welcoming tailgate. Throw like $5 or something like that just to, donate and keep operations clean and fun. Skylines everywhere. A lot of people like to consistently bring that for their tailgate and have Coney stations and things like that. The misconception about that is it's a little bit more of like a meat sauce, and it's some will say the Greeks, but apparently they've pushed that off on the Macedonians instead as sort of something of their origin. So a little bit of history on that. And all the chili parlors are pretty much derived from one family originally, and people just kind of breaking off and starting their own brands within the city. But yeah, like I said, there's always a place to get a drink. I think similar vibe. It's a downtown university. It's a metropolitan university. Through here in the fall, there's generally some other sports going on, whether it's a Bengals game or if it's at least early October or August. There's soccer as well, or just walk by the river and check that out. Decent amount of things to do. Obviously, you don't have to make a huge trip about it, but we love to have people.
All right, I'm excited to come visit.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, football weather, depending on if it's early or late in the season, bring a hoodie because, football season starts out at probably like 95 degrees and ends at about 12 or, somewhere in between there. But, there's been plenty of cold weather end of the season, November, like when we were making the American Championship, December 5th, I think we hosted it 2 or 3 times, and it was bundle up. So be prepared for the bipolar type of weather that we have here. So be prepared for anything when you visit.
Maybe not down to 12, but it can get cold. It'll snow in Tucson once in a while. I've been to a couple football games where it was like sleeting, and it was not a pleasant time to be outside.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I was at the game where the mascot Bearcat got arrested for throwing snowballs into the crowd and was escorted out of the stadium for doing so. So that was kind of a wild thing, sort of a part of some lore of Cincinnati football history here. Not every day that your mascot gets arrested for throwing snowballs. So
sounds like a total UCF move to me.
It wouldn't be snow down there. It'd be like sand or something. Who knows?
Oh, more just the assaulting the fan base thing.
Yeah. Well, it was directed at the players, and so like yeah, Pittsburgh
allegedly.
Helping them ice their knee, right?
Brett, where can people find your podcast, and where can they find you guys online as well?
Yeah, find us on all of wherever you get podcasts. We're at Wildcat Radio AZ on Twitter, or X, as you want to call it. I'm a geriatric millennial, so I still call it Twitter. We're as of now, we're still basically an audio only format, but we're on iTunes, Spotify, all those things. And we always encourage people to leave us ratings and reviews. We'll read it on the air, no matter what it says, as long as it's not completely vulgar, which is usually, it's a fun thing to do. We try to be pretty interactive, and, we'll throw out on Twitter, mailbag things. And it's not just Arizona fans that can ask questions. We like to, get content from different people. And if people want to ask questions about about Arizona or the programs, we're always pretty interactive, and we try to have some fun with it.
Good stuff. Well, Brett, I certainly thank you for coming on, giving us the insight on everything Arizona. I look forward to maybe working together again in the near future. And if you ever decide to take that road trip to Cincinnati, certainly reach out to one of us, and we will make sure that you have a good time. Absolutely. We'll have you guys on the pod here soon as we're getting closer to the season. Absolutely. All right, Brett, we'll see you. Thank you, sir. Thanks, guys.